All right, hi guys. Day 12, block one. Sorry, just ignore that muted message. So today we're going to start looking at how to use technology to create graphs. Specifically, we're looking at how to use our TI-84 calculator. So you need your calculator for the rest of this course. You're going to use it pretty much every day for the remaining days of the course. So I have mine here. I'm sorry the camera for the calculator is kind of blurry, but hopefully you'll be able to see enough to get how to use it. So we're going to go through a lot of different button clicking things today. So you really need to actually click the buttons on your calculator. That's how you'll remember how to do it later on. I also posted a calculator reference sheet with this set of notes that you can always go back to if you don't feel like sifting through all the videos to see where did I explain that thing, or this happened to my calculator and let me see if I can try to fix it. That reference sheet has a ton of little guides that can really quickly walk you through different things with stats. Okay, we obviously haven't covered most of them yet. We will talk about all the things on there, but that's something to go back to. Anyway, this set of notes should look pretty familiar. We're actually going to go back to the notes we used to learn about box plots and histograms and use some of that data again, but now we're going to find the information using our calculator instead of by hand. All right, so we'll start here with, our measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency, and let's add spread, because remember, range and IQR, those are measures of spread, not really central tendency. So the first thing we'll learn on how to do on the calculator is to just enter data. So if I want to enter data, I'm going to click the stat button. So let me turn it on. So the stat button is right up here. So you click the stat button, and then we're going to click edit. So stat, edit is the first thing that comes up. So I'm just going to click enter. I'm going to add that to the notes. I would definitely fill these in so that you can always look back at this as well. Now I have a bunch of stuff in my lists. So these are our data lists here, list 1 and list 2. So let me first show you how to get rid of the numbers in there. I'm going to scroll to the left. I'm going to scroll all the way up so that L1 is highlighted. And I'm going to click the clear button. Do not click delete. Don't click that. Always click clear. Clear, and then enter. If you click delete, it's not the end of the world. There's a guide in the reference sheet to get the list back. Instead of getting rid of the numbers, it just deletes the entire list completely, which is annoying. So click clear instead. Then do the same thing, scroll to the right, go all the way up, so L2 is highlighted, click clear, click enter, and now it's all blank. Yours might be blank if you've never used this before, but you'll have to clear it out eventually. So I'm going to enter the 1, so here's my data, 70, and then I click enter, 65, click enter, 52, click enter, and then I'll pause and fill in the rest, and you enter the rest of yours as well. Okay, so I've entered all of my data into my list. Now, one way to kind of quickly check if you got all the pieces of data, do you see how it says L1 17? That means you're on the 17th number. It's blank right now. And I know that I had 16 pieces of data, so that's good. I didn't miss any. I still could have typed something wrong, so I'll kind of always breeze through and double check, but I think I got them all. So I want to look at those measures of center and spread that we talked about in the earlier videos. So to do that, let's go back to the notes. I'm going to click stat, and then I'm going to click calc, and then I'm going to choose option 1 called 1 var stats. That means one variable statistics, because we're only looking at one variable. How many home runs did he hit? So let's do that. Click stat. Then I have to scroll over to get to the calc option. And number 1 says 1 var stats. Click enter. Now, depending on the calculator you have, this one's a little older. If you have a newer calculator, it'll show you a bunch of like prompts. Basically, when you get to a screen like this, or if it has like L1, L2, stuff like that, just keep clicking enter until you see this pop up. So if you have a newer calculator, you might have to click enter like 3 or 4 times, but you want to see all these crazy numbers pop up. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. The mean is the very first one. It's X bar. So our mean is 36.4. our median. So there's some other symbols here. None of these are median. Let's go down. So see that little arrow here? That means you can scroll down. MED, that's our median, 36, that's what we found. If I keep scrolling down, look at, I actually have my entire 5-number summary here. Min, Q1, median, Q3, max. So we don't have to do it by hand anymore, which is really, really nice. The range is still max minus min. So 70 is our max, min is our 3, so that's still 67. IQR, Q3, 50.5, minus Q1, 25.5, still equals 25. Okay, so all of that's already done for us, which is really nice. So let's use that same set of data to make a box plot in our calculator. So here's our steps on the calculator. Before we start though, go to your regular y equals. If you have like an equation here, just clear it out. Okay, if you have something graphed, it can make things a little annoying. So just clear that out. Now let's start with the steps from our notes. So we're going to click second, and then y equals. So now you're in the stats plot menu. We want to turn plot 1 on. So right now plot 1 is off. So we're going to click enter, and then highlight on. It's already highlighted, it's blinking. Click enter again, and now it'll be turned on. So we're now picking the type. We're making a box plot. Sorry, the notes say histogram. Oh, wait, it shows both. You should see an icon that looks like a histogram. Here's our histogram. Kind of looks like a bar graph, but we know it's a histogram. And then 2 icons that look like box plots. So here's those 2. We want to look at the first one. This is called our modified box plot. We talked a little bit about that with the outliers, so a little sketch of that. It has the 2 little dots on the outside. That's our modified box plot, so it'll show us any outliers. So I'm going to scroll down. Oops, I got to scroll to the right so that that box plot is highlighted, and click enter. Okay, so we did that one. Our X list is where you typed in the data. It should be L1, so unless you're using a different list, you'll have to change this, but it's pretty much always L1. If you need to change it, you can click second and then like see how it says L1, L2, but it should be fine. So leave it as L1. The frequency, leave it as 1. So you don't really change anything else here. You just click the type of plot you want. Now to actually plot it, we're not going to click graph. We're going to click zoom. And we want to go down to 9. See how it says zoom stat? That's the one that you want because it'll make the window perfectly fit that box plot. So you could scroll down and select it, or you could just hit zoom and then the 9 key, and it graphs your box plot for you. Okay. Now, if I want to actually see the numbers here, because this is great, but I can't tell what numbers on each section, I'm going to click the trace button. So let's add that to our notes, other calculator information. Click trace to see the values. So if I click trace, now it's showing me my minimum. I scroll to the right, I see Q1, median, Q3, and maximum. There are no outliers here because our modified box plot would show them, and I don't see any on this, so I don't have any outliers in that data set. Okay, so on our note on the next page, it says, let's create a box plot. We already did this yesterday, so we'll just do really quick here using our calculator. So we started counting, oops, I need 0. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, and 70. Okay, so now we can fill in all the pieces of our box plot. Sorry, mine's a little bit over this graph, bad spacing. So we had our minimum at 3, then Q1, median, Q3, and our maximum was at 70. Okay, so there's a box plot. I went fast because we did this exact box plot yesterday. All right. So it says when creating a modified box plot in your calculator, the outliers will automatically be removed. But how does the calculator do it? So when the calculator, when we're creating a box plot by hand, we use our 5-number summary, minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and our maximum. If we're going to find outliers mathematically, like we're not just saying, oh, that looks like it's pretty far away, our calculator uses a calculation, and we can do that as well. We find what's called the upper fence and lower fence. So that would be Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. That's how your calculator actually finds it. Most of the time, we'll just look at the modified box plot. You don't really need to do this calculation in this class. You can just look at the actual modified box plot and see if there's any outliers. So I want you to try the next one on your own. Use your calculator to make the box plot, and I want you to make a modified box plot. Okay, so you don't even need to do the 5-number summary in the stat calc portion. Just put your data into the list. So remember, just click stat, edit, clear that out by going all the way up and clicking clear, enter, and then type in the data you have into this list and then create the box plot. All right, so here's our modified box plot. So I know it's a little blurry up here, but here's what it looks like on the calculator. So I can see I have 2 outliers here. So those outliers are 10 and 31. Oh, this should have been, oh, I'm sorry, 18, not 10. This is not in the right spot. Let me fix it. 18 and 31, those are outliers. And then I click trace to go through and look at all of those pieces of data. Okay, so then I labeled my numbers up here. You can see my drawing isn't great because see how the actual box plot, the right side is a little bit smaller. My scale here, or just my tick marks, aren't really nicely spread out, but that's fine because I labeled the top so it's really clear to see.